How's Arizona?
Hot. I said it's in the 90s already.
All right.
Okay. So my suggestion would be that we get started. Hi, everybody who seems to know each other. And Anne, why don't you go ahead and set the table?
I will set the table. Let me welcome everybody. I'm excited about sharing this particular book. It was one of the ones that I have enjoyed more than almost any other one I've been reading lately. Let me start out by saying we're talking about a Danny Meyer, Mayer, a famous restaurateur who has 6 restaurants and Shake Shack. He has 241 Shake Shacks, and we make the first one because we've just started building one in Bull's Head, if you haven't been there yet. I'm always interested in what makes a leader, or what makes somebody a millionaire. Danny Meyers, by the way, is worth $600 million. Let's start at the beginning. His mother and father spent several years in their early marriage in Europe, basically in France and Italy. This is going to be important. He was born in St. Louis in 1957. So he's one of a crowd that most of us are. What we have now, I'm going to give you his history, though there's much more beyond that. At 6, he goes to school and he exchanges sandwiches with his fellow students. And he finds out that people don't eat the same. And what he does find out is that Miracle Whip also is something different from the Hellman's Maze he knows about. This is just a quip. Now, then in his early, let's say 7 years old, 8, the parents take their family, he's one of 3, over to Europe for the summer to give them the same love that they have. His mother, says you must write a journal. He does write a journal, but the journal is not about what he sees and the sights that he sees, but about the food that he eats and the restaurants that he goes to. Going on, at age 12, I'm just picking things from the book that made me realize what brought him to be where he is. At 12, he goes to a camp in northwest Wisconsin. The camp is Nemabagaman. By the way, I Googled it. It started in 1920 by a couple from St. Louis, and it was an all-boys camp, and it is still in existence today. Now, at the camp, they have 2 areas that interested me. One, on Sundays, they would sit like in the campfire area, and they would do skits about ethics. And that was one area. The second one was they had a competition of the bunks, and he was chosen to represent his bunk, making a dinner. Each one of the chefs-to-be was given a chicken, a carrot, some onions, flour, and they were to make the dinner for their bunk. Guess who won the contest? This is at 12. Now we'll go back to St. Louis. I don't know why St. Louis, it's really St. Louis. He's in school. By the way, the camp was an all boys camp. The school was an all boys school. And in his sophomore year, he switches to a co-ed, and he finds girls. The girls take up all the time and his marks go down. But in the weekends, they go in their car and they go to various movies and stuff. But basically, he stops off, and what he remembers is he stopped off at Steak and Shake. It was let me see, a bar hop who came out to the car to serve. I remember those from years ago. And then he also cooks food for his friends, all for fun. Now we're jumping, no, not jumping. He finishes high school and he applies to Princeton because both his grandfather and his father went there. And he applies to Trinity College up in Hartford. He's rejected by both. His marks were not good. He writes a letter to Trinity explaining whatever he does, and they accept him and he now goes to Trinity, and he actually feels he owes them something, so he gets all A's to prove that they were right. Now, what happens next? Oh, yes?
So now what do I do?
It's on your messages. It's on your messages.
What? On the messages? Okay. Okay. Thank
All right. Can you hear me? Hello?
Could those of you who are talking, could you please be on mute?
Well, not only at Trinity, he gets involved with being in the news and working on the paper, but he also has a car and he goes into New York and he finds he likes New York. It's exciting and he enjoys that part of the existence. He does two things while he's in college. At 18, he goes as a junior the semester. Can you guess where he went? He goes to Italy. And in that time, he goes and eats at every trattoria. And he finds out that they're all very much alike, except that each one has a different slight taste from the spices that they put in. Then in the that summer, he works for his father. His father runs a tour agency. The father, by the way, is the most interesting character, which I am not going to go into. And he hires his son, and now taking a tour group is not an easy thing for an 18-year-old particularly. But he finds that if he gets the complainers to be on his side and comfortable and they're enjoying it, it makes the trip easier. And then he also finds that if he at a city, he finds a little restaurant that's nobody has seen, and he takes them there. It's something outside the tour. They appreciate it, and they appreciate it with tips at the end. So he's learned to work with a very varied group of people. I mention this because it's going to come up later. So he has the tour. 18, now we're up to. And then he graduates, goes home. This is 1980. And he's going to work on a campaign for Anderson, who is running against Reagan and Carter. and he's in charge of volunteers. And he finds out that to make a good stand, that the volunteers have to be optimistic and have to feel good about themselves and very knowledgeable about what they're doing. So now he's worked with young people in groups and he's worked with older people. And he comes back and he asks his grandfather to help him get a job in New York. The grandfather is a millionaire. He is supporting a industry. So he gets Danny into a checkpoint company. Now, the checkpoint company is a company that trains business people to avoid having thieves and problems with store losses. And he's the trainer at these stores. He's getting $16,500 a year with commissions. At the end, he has moved to New York, has an apartment, feeding himself. He ends up at the end of the year earning $100,000 in commissions. Now, one of the things he has been doing is he goes into different stores cold and sells the program, but he plans his daily living around the restaurant he wants to go to. So the stores he chooses to work at are at the place where the restaurant of the day is. He also takes a wine course. None of this is planning anything. It's just what he wants to do. And at the end of about 4 years, now that's close to $400,000. He's put most of the money away. And the company says, "You're good. We want you to start a satellite program in London." And he thinks about it. This is not what he wants to do with his life. So he says, "No, thank you." And he leaves the job. Before he does anything else, he wants a vacation. So he goes to London. Now in London, he's looking at all these lovely restaurants and he wants to try them. So he calls up for a reservation of one and is refused. Calls another restaurant, reservation of one, refused. So he thinks, third time, he goes back to the original restaurant and says, "A reservation for two, please." And they say, "Oh, of course." And so he goes to the restaurant and sits at the table. And finally he says, "I guess my guest is not coming. I'll order dinner now." And what happens is that they treat him very badly. They're not interested in what he wants, and the waiter is not very nice. And he calls over sommelier, and he orders a very expensive wine. And all of a sudden, everything changes, and he is treated royally. This is important because it will come up when he runs a restaurant. Comes back, and now he wants to do something grown up. And he sets out for LSAT tests at a point. He's going to be a lawyer. The night before he has to take the test, he has supper with his aunt and uncle. And they're asking him about his feelings, and he says, "Let's go doing it, not very interested." And then they turn to him and they say, "Why don't you follow your passion?" "What passion?" he responds. you like food and restaurants. The light bulb hits. He does not take the LSATs, and he now starts in his mind that he's going to build a restaurant in New York City. That's part one. That's the beginning. The second part of my portion is what does he do? He's never run any organization. He's never been to run a restaurant, but he now comes back to New York, gets a job in the restaurant is Pesca, but it's one of the fine Italian restaurants. And there he spends 8 months, where he learns to how to decide on menu, decide on specialties, manage the people that come in, the guests. So he has a role of every kind. Now, I will tell you that there's a love story involved in this as well, because the first day that he's there, he's walking down the steps to the basement, and a waitress is coming up, and their eyes meet. This is Audrey. The following day, she's not there. She's an actress and off on a road show. Comes back many months later, and they are calm and talking collegially and nothing special. But now he's 8 months finished. He's learned as much as he can. But I forgot to mention that at the restaurant, he finds that they have a card where the people write down their name and their telephone number and their address. And he sees that they're building a database. Keep that in mind, because it'll all come together. He's going to leave for 100 days in Europe to get a feel and understand more about restaurant touring. But before he leaves, that last night, he has a date with Audrey. And that's the only date he has. They start at 6 and they end at 4 in the morning. He leaves the next day for Europe. His father has helped him plan where and what he should go, because the father knows France and Italy. So he starts out in Italy at Giovanni's. It's a small restaurant, but one of the very fine ones. And there he acts almost like a scullery maid. Everything that nobody wants to do, that's what he has to do. Crack clamshells, pick up the floor. He really is what I would call like a scullery maid. But he feels something special about the group. He feels very part of them. They do teach him a little bit about menus and how to act. And now he goes to Milan, and there he works with a very fancy chef. Now the chef isn't interested in he gets $500, but he isn't interested in Danny. It's a sous chef that spends time with him and teaches him all about what goes on in a kitchen. Next stop, Bordeaux. At Bordeaux, he learns a lot about what would be a farmer's market, how to choose fresh vegetables and fruit. And also he goes to vineyards. Then to Paris, where he meets Audrey. And they spend a week eating from place to place. And they discuss it, I assume. Now he is going to take the plane back home. 100 days is over. And on the plane, he writes down, what I want in my restaurant is fresh food like California has, and that kind of vegetation, service like Paris restaurants have, and the warmth of the Italian restaurant that I worked at. So he has plans for how he wants his restaurant to be, the food. And then he sits down and writes the recipes that he would like to have in the restaurant. One of them is his grandmother's bean soup and other things that he had enjoyed. Well, now we're back in New York. That's the end of his training. So he spent 8 months and 100 days, which is less than a year, in training and studying. He's a good learner and he's very thoughtful. Now that ends part 2, and we're now about to open a restaurant. He walks the streets of New York City. He stops off and re-sees MoMA. His grandfather had given him a pass. There are lots of ways that he's done things, and he finds the cost of rental uptown is very high. So now he walks downtown and he finds a square, a park that has farmers market twice a week. And around the corner, on the edge of the park, he finds a small restaurant, bar kind of thing, and a factory next to it that is empty. So if you put the two together and broke the wall, you would have a large restaurant. So he gets, and now, where is it? Union Square. Now, I don't know how many of you have been to New York. It's 14th Street, East 14th Street. And some of you may even remember S. Klein's. It was a clothing store, sort of like Loman's. And at one point, it had luau's along the way. So now we have a park, Union Square, and he has chosen, he's gotten rent. He's rented it. He has somebody to construct it, and he goes to find architects. And he finds a group of architects that are interested. Basically, they've been doing bigger buildings like churches and things. And he hires and gets to work. He gives them their plan. Now, I want to say something as terms of money. It's cost him, when it's finished, $700,000 to get the place ready. He does include paintings from not the original, from MoMA. He has a very big wine cellar. He plans the restaurant to be smaller rooms so that there's some warmth in it. And now it's almost ready to start. And he has hired, and he can't go into the building because it's not finished. So he takes the group that he's hired to Union Park, and he sits down with them. Remember what he did in the camp originally, and they do little vignettes of what would happen if such and such got served, or so and so acted with this way. With a barrel of apples, they sat and they trained together. This is 1985, the store, excuse me, the restaurant, Union Square Cafe opens. Now, I would like you, he's, by the way, all of 27 years old. It's a huge success it's in the right location, in the fact that there's a whole publishing community there that come for lunches, and he has some very good publicity by accident and in purpose. So I'd like you, for right now, if you have your cell phone and you're not on it, to Google Union Square Cafe. Now, this is 2024, so think how long this Union Cafe has been in existence, and it still gets good ratings. Now, I'll tell you some of the things that he did with it. He asked himself, who wrote the rules that you have to serve a bottle of wine? He sold glasses of wine. And in 1990, he made it smoke-free. All worked. Let me see what else I wanted to tell you about them. Everyone, now whether it be one person or 10, should be treated the same way. You remember what happened in London. He tweaked his menu. It took time until it was perfect. He still tweaks it. And they would change it. They limited some of it. But basically, it was a huge success. Now, he spends his time there. It's not that it's just done. He's the host. He goes around and greets guests. He helps out if there's somebody that can't come in. He'll do the waiting. He's man of the hour. I'm just thinking what else I wanted to tell you about the Union Cafe. No, those are the main things, I think. All right. That doesn't make him a restaurateur. It's one restaurant. He marries, and on his days off during those years, they go antiquing in West Pennsylvania and also in New England. And when they're finished, they go to eat in a tavern. 1990, about 1991, because it takes 3 years before he actually opens a restaurant. So we're about to look again. A fancy restaurant has closed, and the chef says to him, I'd like to work with you and open a restaurant. And he thinks about it. He's nervous because his father expanded too fast, so that he takes his time. And so he has a chef and he has a location because they take over that restaurant. And now he has to think about how he wants to make that restaurant, a context of it. And he thinks, who wrote, and he writes this every time, who wrote the rule that you have to have a restaurant where the waiters are in tuxedos and everyone calls you madam and monsieur, and we're in America. So I'm going to make a tavern, and I'm going to serve on Limoges because it's going to be a fancy one. Now, if you want to take a minute, you can use your cell phone and log into Gramercy Tavern. I've had friends that I've spoken to since I read the book, and they have eaten there, and they are most pleased with both the service and the food. They say it's excellent. He does add a couple of things. He's learned that you have to have a certain kind of kitchen that he doesn't have in Union Square, and the coat room has to be bigger. So he has made improvements along these lines. Is it a success? I'm not going to spend time with it, but it is. They have antiques in it, and it has that warm feeling that he wants. 1994 is when it opens. Moving on. He's opened the second one, and I guess it got in his blood, so now he's looking for a third existence. And he looks around and he finds another park. And this park is Madison Park, also on the skirts of the road, near Pennsylvania Station. What that was. So he looks at the park. It's a little dilapidated, and he would certainly like to see it more done better so that the neighborhood could enjoy it. And he finds a building. It's the MetLife building that's historic. And is being renovated. And they have some very fine, they have a bank there, and they have, I think, 2 banks. And they will have a lot of people there. So he looks at this beautiful lobby of the MetLife, and he says, I can't do one restaurant here, it's too big. I have to do 2, and we put a wall between them. But you have to work within the requirements of the historic society, so they work it out. Again, he has architects, and now he's using the same architect he used for Gramercy Tavern. And this time, what is he going to do? He has the location. Now he has to get a chef. And he finds a chef and sends him over to Europe because he wants to have this particular restaurant more like the brasseries in France. Notice that having been in Europe as much as he has affected what he's choosing. Now, so one is a brasserie, more or less, and the other one is called Tabla, and Tabla is a Indian restaurant because he feels New York should have Indian restaurants, and it's the right thing to do. His original chef for Union Square was born in Bombay and brought up in India, and has used spices even in the cafe. So they make a special spice room, and they open up an Indian restaurant. So now he has 4 restaurants. That's not bad. His cousin, Robert, has opened up a restaurant and a jazz place. This is around 2000. And he's not making a living out of it. And he says, please come and help me. And Danny says, I have 4 restaurants. It's more than enough. And it takes my time because I go to each one every week. And I actually have training sessions and meetings with my different teams. No, can't do it. So what happens is that a friend of his says, I'd like you to come over. I'm having a barbecue dinner. He says, you're testing me and I don't want to go. Oh, just come and enjoy. So he goes over and he has dinner, and it is superb. He just can't get over it. It's been frozen food that's been reheated, and it's still outstanding. So he now thinks he'll open up a barbecue place. But before that, he sends his team and he goes to North Carolina, to Texas, to I don't know where else he goes. Texas, I guess. Oh, St. Louis, and they all investigate what barbecue is like, what kind of place it's in, and which is the best. He comes back, and now he again has to build a restaurant that gives you the feeling of a barbecue. It has the pit, it has a smokestack, and he works on that one, as well as on the jazz club, which he says, who wrote that it has to be at night and dark? And he makes a very different kind of bar restaurant upstairs. Now he's up, by the way, the name of the restaurant is Blue Smoke. So he has 6 places. Well, he's making good money, you can be sure. And he has Michelin status. And in addition to that, Zagat is on Zagat. Now, what happens at that point is at around 2000, little maybe just about, he looks at the Zagat rating. The Union Square Cafe was 13, but now it's 20. And his 11 Madison Avenue, Madison Park is also lower, and he's in trouble. So he doesn't know what to do. And then he thinks about it, and he realizes that he has certain requirements that aren't being met, and he calls together, and this is when he starts what they call Enlightened Hospitality. But before I get into what Enlightened Hospitality is, let me just tell you how Shake Shack became a part of his program. Target put out a contest for sculpture in the Madison Park with the title, I Love Taxis and Hot Dogs, because they feel everybody has had both riding a taxi and eaten a hot dog. And so they get the sculptures, and among them is the hot dog cart. Well, Danny says you can't have a hot dog cart in a park without food. So he now decides he's going to take food. And now he thinks the best hot dog he ever had was in Chicago. And he brings that Chicago hot dog in with all the fixings, and he has a drink or two. He also offers wine, and he has crinkle potatoes, fried crinkle potatoes that came from Steak and Shake that he used to love. The first year he loses 5,000, but he actually has a lot of people coming. It's just that he is not doing something right. They have it the second year, he breaks even. And in the third year, he decides he's going to add hamburgers. And again, he spends hours in the fancy dining room, which he changes to get the right consistency of beef Angus with a little brisket so that it has the right consistency within a half an ounce. Then that third year, he makes money. Well, then he talks to New York City that has supported this and the Conservancy of the area that they should now build a kiosk and have a drive-through like would normally be. And that's the beginning of Shake Shack. That's the only mention in the book. There are now 240, as I told you. And I just saw my first one, believe it or not, on the road to Albany at a rest stop. And the second one that I know of, if you were to Google it, is in Darien. And the third one that's about to be in Bull's Head. But he has a whole company on it. Now let me get back to Enlightened Hospitality. That is chapter 11. Now, chapter 11 talks about 5 levels of hospitality. The first level, he says, is the staff. The second level are the guests. The third, the community. The fourth, the suppliers. And the fifth, the investors, in that order. Now, he says, by the way, what he's doing works generally for any business and even for home. So let's look what he has suggested for the staff. In the hiring, he has an order of what's important. 51% is for emotional skills, and 49% is for technical skills. And the reason that that's important is that you can't get hospitality from technical skills. Now, he wants people that are optimistic. He wants them to be friendly. He wants them to be empathetic. And he wants them to enjoy the work that they're doing. He says they work 1/3 of their day, and they shouldn't be unhappy. They should enjoy their colleagues, and they should give pleasure to the guests. And that's what he did was get each of his teams at each of the restaurants that he owned, and he discussed the problem and discussed what he had thought about and explained why he hires who he hires. And then he wants his staff to go to the community and do a project in the community so that they become part of it. And he, for each restaurant, does some festival or event where he does the program and then he gives a portion of the profits to the group. Now, that's staff. But the important part about staff is to have fun, as he says, to enjoy. Next, hospitality. Well, guests are guests, as we know. But the important thing is that the waiters give direct eye contact to the guests and give them the kind of pleasure that they should have, because they're doing really the restaurant a favor by being there. So it's a different kind of twist. Then for the community, as I mentioned, they go out and they do various things to make it financially as well as socially worthwhile. And then you would know with the suppliers that they have trust and respect. And not only was that true for the suppliers, but for the community and for the guests and for the staff, so that we're looking at hospitality is what they do for you, not what they do to you. So it became very much a part. Chapter 11 is long and involved, and there are many, many examples that he gives, some good and some not good. One other chapter that I enjoyed was, what do you do when you make a mistake? Because not everybody is perfect. And he defines it as writing the last chapter. So it's the idea that the last chapter is how you make up or redo what you've done. Let me catch my breath a second. Now, what goes on in the book are a number of examples. I'm just going to take one to show you where they go out. It's a tabla. That's the Indian restaurant. They have a reservation, but they also have a special party. So when the people come to take it, they say, sorry, we have a special dinner party here and nobody else is here. And the people leave, and they look at the reservation list and they realize it's an anniversary that this couple has come to celebrate. So the manager has seen the car, so he runs after the car, catches them, brings them back, and seats them at a special table somewhere. And the fellow says, do you know anything about wines? And he said, of course they do. And he says, what's the problem? He said, well, if I put the champagne bottle in the freezer, will it explode? Because I'll have it planned for us when we come back. And the manager or the listens and he says, I think yes. So he says, give me your keys to your apartment and I'll go and take care of it. So he takes a taxi up there, puts the champagne bottle into the refrigerator and out of the freezer, comes back and he says, everything is fine. And as Danny says, it cost me $31, but it made me $1 million in terms of advertising and and having people share their good experience with me. He does many different things. But I wanted to stop at this point, give you a chance. I enjoyed the book. I learned a lot. I found it was nicely written, very down to earth. In fact, many of the phrases that you use at home, you'll see there. He doesn't discuss the fact that he's Jewish, particularly, and only one sentence in the book mentions that. That's when he's in Italy as a student and he's in a convent. But outside of that, his attitude toward life is wonderful. It's balanced. Whatever happens, he finds the right side of things. So thank you for listening. I hope you will enjoy the book as much as I did. Are there any questions?
Bravo. Bravo. That's great. And really
Yes?
great.
I hope
And
you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed, in fact, if I were younger, I would go and eat in each of the restaurants.
and did he talk about the fact, I guess he's a success, but he also comes from family money, which helped, underwrite him. Could he have done what he did without that family money?
Well, he was a very good salesman. You saw that he made
Right.
$400,000. It really, I found that it didn't hurt. Actually, the first restaurant was supported by his family. The second restaurant, his grandfather said, if you're going to do it, you've got to get other people. The grandfather could have given him the millions of dollars, but he said, you have to get investors, so that he didn't go with the money very much, but he had the background from all the things that I felt.
That he was exposed to.
Yes, yes, exactly. His mother, I didn't mention it because there's only so much you want to tell. His mother, after the divorce, opened a gallery, and he had time when he was in Trinidad to spend hours in MoMA. Oh, I forgot to tell you. I apologize. He wasn't finished when he opened up Jack. Chapter 13 is when he actually puts in a proposal for the MoMA restaurants. There were actually a restaurant, a cafeteria for guests, cafeteria for staff, 2 or 3 small places, terraces, and a catering place. So that was the first time he went uptown. So I think if I would write, even now he would probably do something. But he had imagination. That's what I thought was so exciting.
He had imagination and lots of smarts. I think
Yes.
when you start any project, when I think of all of the things that you've listed here, my goodness, any one of them I think would be a life story. Certainly for me, I can't imagine him having enough energy and love for what he was doing to, in fact, open up so many restaurants. And then at the end of the day, to have a whole chain called Shake Shack, which really was a lot different from the individual restaurants that he had. So he's hit the whole range of meeting people's tastes in all kinds of venues. I just think it takes a certain genius to do the kind of stuff that he did.
And I feel the progression of the way he learned about things and where he went and the way he did it was so interesting. I've been at the Shake Shack in Darien. It was very crowded, very good.
No.
It's amazing when you list all of the restaurants, particularly the ones that were in the parks. I think that a good number of us have experienced that. That alone is a big project, just one. To then get into so many that he had the organizational skills and the knack to get it done. Very, very impressive.
I read that 75% of all restaurants fail.
Right.
So that so many successful restaurants is amazing.
And it's Hetty. I'd like to just add, I've been reading the book since I knew you were going to talk about this, and I'm enjoying the book very much. And I had the pleasure of eating at the Gramercy Tavern. I also ate at Union Square Cafe and Blue Smoke. But at the Gramercy Tavern, he speaks about hospitality and having, the diners go home with a love of their experience there. And in the Gramercy Tavern, when I ate there years ago, they sent us home with home-baked muffins for breakfast the next morning, with the word that they wanted us to remember what a delicious meal we had the night before and be thinking about how wonderful it was the next day when we had our muffins, a beautiful presentation, like a gift. And so I think he had good ideas about how to really make people feel that they were appreciated when they came to eat at his restaurants.
It was really a thank you for coming. And
Yes.
what was interesting for me when I read it was that he has a regular group. And if you want to be a regular at a restaurant, you would think that you have to go there 20 times at 10 or more. He figures that if you basically go about 3 times, with all the other things you go with, that you're considered regular. And he has this list. Originally, he did it by hand, and then he did it by computer. He really uses everything that you can think about to reach people and make them feel good.
There are a lot of businesses that fail, and when you think in terms of all of the successes he had, how brilliant a guy he really is, that he was able to do all that in different venues, different locations, and different styles of restaurants. And the very fact that we've sort of all noticed that for one restaurant to be successful, it takes a lot of effort, and many don't succeed.
Yeah, well, as I said, it awakened me. Now when I go to a restaurant, I look around. I have a different attitude now.
So, Ann, when are we going out to dinner?
Where were we going?
When and where? That's right.
When and where? By the way, Farmhouse has a comment card that they give out, which is interesting. I wouldn't have, noticed it particularly, but I saw where he used it.
Yeah, the Farmhouse is a nice restaurant for sure.
Yeah.
That's just one. It's amazing.
Yeah, one, right. No,
And I'd like to make a date with you to take you to the Shake Shack when it opens.
it's a deal.
Okay.
Gail, will you take a third?
No. It's Ann and me. We've
Okay.
been meaning to get together. Her birthday comes up in May, but I don't know if it'll be open by then, but we'll save it.
Yes, we will. Oh, good, Gail. I was going to try and get to there before I gave this lecture, but I didn't get there.
Not open yet.
Well,
No.
Ann,
But can you imagine? I was when I went up to see the solar eclipse, we went up on the thruway, and we stopped off at this rest, and they've just redone it, and it was my grandson pointed out to me, look, there's your Shake Shack, and the line was tremendous. I didn't.
well, it's amazing.
And Ethan is on this call. Hi, Ethan.
Yes, he is.
Well, there's a nice audience here, Ann. I think you're going to have a lot of people. You should get a commission for all the people that are going to now show up at these restaurants.
No, I'll take that. I don't think it'll add to the 100,000. No, but I do think if you want to read a book, I was recommended because it was light, but it turned out to be very much more than just light.
Well, you've certainly done a great job in getting us engaged, and Gail beat me to the punch. So I want to report when you guys are done. Just to hear how it went. So you're muted, Gail. You gotta mute yourself. Gail, we can't hear you.
I realized that when I saw the little red line through my microphone. Everybody should, take Ann out, and she can go a number of times.
Oh, there's a lot of restaurants here. I mean, Ann, what's the total number of restaurants? I mean, you got all those from Shake Shack alone.
All right.
you add up
Shake
all-
Shack is 240. It was 240 when I looked it up, and then Stanford came in, so that was 241. He has Union Square Cafe, Gramercy Tavern, 11 Madison, Tabla, that's the Indian one, Blue Smoke, I'm up to 5, Jazz Bar. Then he has nearly 6 at MoMA. That really is unbelievable. By the way, the prices are not cheap. If you did Google Gramercy Park, it has 100 plus, and that's
Wow.
not counting wine or anything else. And I
And,
think
and I think the Indian restaurant is closed. That's the only one he had issues with. I looked on Wikipedia, that one closed.
that close. Thank you.
Okay.
when you think about literally,
I'll subtract 1.
I thought we just added one. I thought one just got added.
Not quite the same.
Anne, thank you
Yes.
so much. And we just want to know when your next book report's coming out. And
Next year.
I want to thank Marcy Schoenfeld for organizing the book talks and the programs. And we'll keep you all posted. You had a nice audience here tonight. There was 18 people on. Not people, more than 18, because some are couples. Because I see the Tertians there are 2 of them. So, but
Now they'll take each other out to dinner.
exactly. So, thank you so much, Anne, and for everyone for attending, and to be continued. And we'll keep you posted. Just watch your constant contact. There's other stuff coming up, and you guys take care. And,
All right. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Anne.
Thank you, Anne.
and
Thank you.
Thank you.
Leslie, Aziz and Pesach to you too,
Yes.
and to everybody who celebrates.
Right.
All right, take care, everyone.
Aye.